Hey, this is a call out. Who gagged? Who out in the audience is gagging? Yes, this is a call for everyone and not just me, because who was the one who was gagged initially? Oh, it was me. Sorry. But I gagged because Last Twilight here, my best friend Last Twilight, is a Stunosha Dupree 3000 BL show that, I watched in 2024 for the first time when it was airing, like week by week. And you know what? Every single episode made me cry. And like, it was so good that I even got a tattoo for it. Mind you, this isn't the first Jimmy C series that I've done that for, because did I get multiple vice versa tattoos? See, like, both of my wrists? Yes, I did. Anyway, we're not talking about the show. I am, in fact, talking about the fact that GMMTV released an English translation. Never mind the fact that, like, literally, hold one. Ooh, my book, that top bookshelf looks diabolical. So maybe I need to take some stuff off of there because it looks like it's dipping, but right, that little orange, I'm gonna get it, hold on. Okay, so maybe, yes. Maybe I do have two copies of the book. Maybe this one is in English and maybe this one is in Thai. Can I speak Thai or read Thai? No, I cannot. Anyway, the blurb says that Day, a promising badminton player, finds out he has infectious keratitis and will shortly go blind. He has no other choice but to take Mock, a reckless technical college student thug, as his caretaker. While Day attempts to comprehend the significance of the remaining light, he discovers that Mock's face, which is only seen as a blur, is becoming increasingly essential in his life. Day has to make the most of his final vision, as well as answer for himself, why is he unable to get Mock's face out of his mind? I will say, the blurb does not do the book justice, because there is so much more. But to be fair, it's not real. I'll cover this later, but there's more to the book than like what the blurb says, but the book doesn't explore all of it. Anyway, what I'm immediately going to say is, like, with this being a translation, something I noted down, like, before I even started reading it was that I expected a lot of, like, the nuance to get lost in translation, literally lost in translation in this novel. You know, I've read translated BL books in the past, and they've had that exact issue, so, like, before I went into this one, I kind of was expecting the same one. Also, in my last video, I said that I had a video planned that involved two other books. One of them sold out before I could buy it, so that video is only going to contain two books unless I can find the third one somewhere. Anyway, I mean, from the blurb, that is, like, more or less what happens in the show. Like, Day is going blind, he has to take Mock as his caretaker and basically adjust. But the blurb does miss out the adjusting to, like, his new life, because even though, like, the blurb frames this more as just, like, a romance book, a lot of, like, the plotline is Day adjusting to his new life with, like, limited vision. But also in the show, Mock, played by Jimmy, who we love. Honestly, we love both Jimmy and C. Like, in the show, Mock goes to prison in the first episode, and the only reason he ends up as Day's caretaker is because he literally cannot get any other job. And then he basically talks shit about Day to Day's face during the interview. And basically, Day hires Mock because Mock is the only person who doesn't, like, pity him. Anyway, the book opens on Day seeing his, I cannot pronounce this, ophthalmologist, and basically getting bitter towards his brother Knight, and then walking off trying to make it home on his own. And then Day ends up getting, like, stuck on one of those traffic islands, like when you're crossing the road. I don't know if they exist, like, in the US, but I know they do exist in the UK. Like, when you're crossing the road, it's like the bit between lanes. And Mock just, like, casually appears and, like, on his motorbike and like takes Day home, and then Day just lies and says, yeah, he's here to interview to be my caretaker. But, like, Day tells Mock just to refuse halfway through, except he doesn't, and then Day tells Mock that the moment he starts feeling pity for him that he'll be fired. Anyway, there absolutely were going to be differences between the book and the series, and, like, my stance immediately I'm gonna say is, this translation that I've read, obviously because I can't read Thai, I'm not getting to read like the original source material, like as it was intended. But like I feel like the book just has less than the series does, ironically. Like the first major one, other than like the way that the two of them met, was that like in like when Mock tries to see the world in Day's shoes, in the show he goes to like this open air market but like covers his eyes to try and like make his way around, whereas like in the book he tries cooking soup blindfolded. And another one is the big love confession like towards the end of the book. And I mean, I will say pretty much every BL follows a very similar format where like they get together, break up near the end, and then get back together. But then like when the time comes for Day and Mock to get together, in the book the two of them are just stuck in a lift. Whereas like in the series, it's so much grander in the series, where like it's like the confession is at night and poor Jai, who is Mock's best friend's wedding, like when the wedding is over. Anyway, yeah, like I mentioned before about stuff that was like lost in translation, there were grammatical errors that were a result of the translation. I have read like a few other BL adaptations that have been like given English translations, like Theory of Love, Together, Love Mechanics, and vice versa. And all of them had the exact same issue in that the translation had probably just been like a literal translation run through a machine. Or someone might have done it, but like me last video where like how I talked about I DNF'd a book because the quality of the writing was so bad. And like if I wasn't already like a huge massive fan of Last Twilight, as in it's probably my favourite TV show ever, probably like I've also like besides Love Mechanics, I have watched all of the shows of like the BL books that I referenced. But I think had I not watched these shows prior, I probably would have DNF'd some of the books simply because of the issues that did come with, unfortunately, the translation. Like, you can read the story in these books and, like, it does make sense. But I just don't know whether, like, the quality in, like, the sense of... Say you buy a book that's original language was English. I don't think the quality was quite there comparable to something where the English language was the original one. And, you know, I mentioned about some of the nuance getting lost in translation, and I do think that did happen because, like, you know, if it's not the nuance that was lost, it was, like, the tone of voice, because, like, and, like, the character as well. Because, yeah, like, the characters do say things, but I feel like if you're reading something that's written in your, like, first language, you can pick up on, like, tone, sarcasm, things like that. But I feel like things like that have often gotten lost in these BL books that I've read, sadly. Anyway, like I said, since Last Twilight is literally my favourite TV show, I'm more than happy to give this book a pass. I don't care. Is that hypocritical? Oh, absolutely it is. And I'm fully aware of that. Like I say, when the show first aired, literally I cried over every single episode. If I wasn't wearing long trousers, I would show you the tattoo, but it's like on my upper thigh and I'm not about to get my thigh out on a YouTube video. And I think something that I have also mentioned about probably literally other like BL book I've read that is also like a show, that I feel like the show does more justice for the characters, specifically like the side characters. Like Poor Jai in Last Twilight, for example, played by Namtam Tipnari in the show. Icon, we love her. Like, she's pregnant throughout the book and the show, but, like, she's barely in the book, whereas she has more presence in the show. Like, she's an actual character. But I do think that's down to the fact that the show, you know, basically gave both Day and Mock plot lines, whereas the book, even though Day and Mock are both on the cover, it was like this book was definitely told from Day's point of view, because you know the book was predominantly focused on Day and his journey becoming more independent as a blind person. Also, I think like I mentioned already, I think that is something that the blurb missed out, because even though it doesn't state it, that is absolutely what the plotline of this book is about. It's about Day gaining his independence again. You know, for example, like Mock helps Day get out of the house. He helps Day, like, he joins a running group. He gets Day to see, like, all of his university friends, integrating him as, like, just normal, another person in society. I don't think this quote was in the book, but I remember it being in the show, and it's something to the effect of, Day is a normal person, he just can't see. I will say, this is probably to stray away from the book a bit. When the show came out, and I don't know whether this was a point of contention, like, with the book, as it was, like, when the show was airing. Like, a lot of people complained about the ending, whereas, and I'm gonna give a spoiler alert, you know, I'm gonna wait a few seconds, wang it up on screen. So Day goes, like, the ending of the show and the book, like, Day undergoes surgery to basically repair his corneas, and he regains his vision. And I remember people having a problem with this, saying that, like, this meant the only happy ending for blind people was for them to regain their vision, and that went against, and, like, Day getting his vision back at the end of the book went against basically the point of the plot. And personally, I disagree with this, personally, because for me, the way I see it is that, like, Day as a character, he wasn't always blind. Like, he went blind as a university student, so as an adult. So, for me, it made perfect sense that he would want to get his vision back. Because, like, at the end of the day, why wouldn't he want his vision back? If, like, he has known how to live with vision and then also without it. Like, if Day had been blind from birth, I would have absolutely, you know, understood and maybe even been on the side of, if Day got vision, then that would have gone against the point of the book and the plot. But since he wasn't blind from birth, like, to me it makes sense that he'd want his vision back. And for the case of the plot and, like, going against the plot, like, throughout both the show and the book, Day, because of Mock, does gain his independence. He does learn to be independent. And, like, if you consumed the media properly, you would have seen that he was able to be independent as a blind person. Like, he literally ends up running his own bookshop while blind. So yeah, I'm very much team, it makes sense that he'd want his vision back at the end. Like, girl, obviously. Anyway, that's going to be the end of the spoilers, and also the end of this video. When I said I'm trying to, like, diversify my content, I do still want to talk about individual books like this, but it's only going to be, like, a specific book, not, like, every single book. When it's a book I, like, particularly want to talk about, I'm still going to, like, post about them on my blog and my Medium in, like, a written format. But it's just that, like, not every book I read is going to be spoken about on this channel, just to, like, diversify the book and reading content, really. But anyway, I love Last Twilight. Point blank period. You know, this English translation, it definitely is flawed, and I'm not going to pretend it's not. And, you know, perhaps the translation doesn't do it justice, but I still love it. But also, I do think that is the case for every translated BL I've read anyway. So yeah, that's going to be it. Feel free to like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you'd really like. Let me know, have you read Last Twilight? Have you watched Last Twilight? Have you watched any other Jimmy C shows? Because as of, to date this video, as of me recording this, the first 8 episodes of My Magic Prophecy are out. Am I gonna get a tattoo because of that show? Who knows? It remains to be seen. Anyway, yeah, bye.